Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Little Prince. We are here for something special. I'm not going
Something
to spoil
special.
it. We're
Yep.
going to hand it over to JV in a second here. But before we get into it, we would like to give a shout out to Ghost Energy, who is not a sponsor,
Yet.
but we will be drinking it anyways.
We are. Oh, that was satisfying. What are you drinking
That was a
today,
good one.
Ty?
I have a cherry limeade. I've actually never had this one before. Does it taste like
I'm,
medicine? I don't know.
I don't know. Give it a try. Tylenol?
Little medicinal, but not bad.
Yeah, you know what? I have to say that artificial cherry flavor is actually one of my favorite candy flavors.
Really? It is
Really.
on the very bottom of my list.
Oh, I hate grape and watermelon, but cherry is like top
Strawberry. Ugh.
notch.
Yeah, really? See, mine is peach.
Oh, you know what? That's probably number two for me. Do love artificial peach. Okay, I'm drinking electric limeade. It's a special edition. It's a 2025 EDC edition. And it's very apropos because my husband and I are in Las Vegas this weekend. Not for EDC, but it's EDC is a Las Vegas event. So, anyways, and this tastes like ecstasy and electronic music. So no, not really, but it's
Delicious.
delicious. It's very
With a
delicious.
hint of lemonade. Yeah.
It's very good. All right. So, do you want to know what we're doing today, Tyler?
Yes, I mean, I have an inkling. We did put out a request for some assistance from our viewers.
We
So,
did.
yeah.
We asked our viewer listeners for some hot takes, some bookish hot takes, and so we collected those. We thought we would give you an episode before we have our next guest on about just some bookish hot takes because we know our bookish community is wonderful and very passionate, and so there are competing opinions, and it's so fun to discuss some of these because. Tyler's a voracious reader. I am a less voracious reader, but I'm a writer. And so I thought it would be a fun idea to bounce some of these hot takes off each other and just kind of get into it respectfully. Um,
Respectfully. Yeah.
so we've collected some, and I think want to just go for it.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have one off the top?
I do. Okay, so
Okay.
I sleuthed on threads yesterday and found some fun ones. Asked if readers are okay with me using them. So let's see. Um, how about this one? Okay, so this is from another author, actually, Kayla Rose. She says that I dislike enemies to lovers because I don't like when the MMC is wicked to the FMCs. What do you mean he killed your brother, but you're still in love? So enemies to
Oh,
lovers, how do we feel about that? I think that kind of digs into the idea of morally gray and red flag. I think we
yeah.
touched on it last episode, but how do you feel about enemies to lovers? Like
Okay,
true
so
enemies to lovers.
true enemies to lovers, like I guess we could talk about like Fourth Wing, right? Also, we're gonna put a quick little spoiler warning, so if you do not want
Oh,
to hear anything like this for Fourth Wing, if you have not read it, we'll put this at the beginning before
yeah,
we start talking about it. But there might be spoilers, so just so you know.
just so you're aware.
So we've got Zayden and we've got the other girl. I can't remember her name off the top of my head.
Violet?
Violet, thank you.
Yeah,
That's a true enemies to lovers, I think, because
it
like
is.
he
I
wanted
think.
to kill her the second he saw her. Now,
Right.
as a reader and a romance reader, like I love me a romance. I love me a dark academia. I love me just like give me all of the push, pull, back, forth, stuff like that. Um, I can see morally where, yes, maybe we shouldn't be falling for those guys. You know, they're
In
going to
real
lead us
life.
down like maybe a not a great path, right? But they make for the best tension in
Uh-huh.
books,
That slow
right?
burn?
So
Yeah.
the slow burn, right? Like I just finished last night Reckless, which is book 2 of the Powerless series.
Is that an enemies to lovers?
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah,
been on
it
my
is.
TBR.
Yeah, it is more, it's not really a super slow, it's a slow burn in the sense of like you don't really get any action really, but it's not really a slow burn in the sense of how quick they fall for each other, but it's just like I think that you don't need a morally gray guy, but there is something attractive about a morally gray guy. Killing a family member and then falling for them, this only happens in books,
Problematic.
people. Well, I can't really say that actually. Maybe
Yeah,
this happens in real life, but I
I don't know.
think
I
that,
wouldn't know.
yeah, me neither. I mean, I haven't personally been in that position, but I think that that's a tough one. Morally, no. Morally, we're not, that's not something that we're okay with. But fictionally, I like it.
I mean, I get the point, right? The idea of, okay, so if we're talking fourth wing, because it's a big one, pretty much, well, a large majority of people know fourth wing.
Mhm.
Xaden, they know this whole dynamic between Xaden and Violet, at least at the beginning of book one. And at the time that Violet meets Xaden, right, she is under the impression that Xaden's father killed Violet's brother, right?
Yes.
If you think about it, right? I mean, enemies to lovers, it's a tale as old as time. I mean, Romeo and
Yep.
Juliet is
Yeah.
enemies to lovers.
Yep.
Not exactly slow burn, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there is something, it's I think it's that forbidden trope, right? We all like this sort of like, oh, I shouldn't be with this person for all of these reasons. And enemies to lovers, if if I think it depends on if the enemies to lovers dynamic is one similar to Fourth Wing, for example. If it's like
Yeah.
where the MMC is truly an asshole to the FMC, like a bully type situation.
Yeah. No, I
Absolutely
don't
not.
like that.
I don't like
No.
that either. And I guess the more underlying question should be like, is it responsible for us as romance authors to include that type of dynamic in our books? Are we setting our reader base, who are largely female, up for like leaning into toxicity? I don't
Looking
know.
for that shadow daddy, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
yeah,
a great question for you, I think. And coming from a reader, I love it because
yeah,
it's like that pull, that tension. Does he need, like, I really don't like it when he's an absolute jerk, but I love it when he's snarky. You
yeah,
know, give me like that snarkiness, those little comments that maybe were meant to be, mean or detrimental, but end up being endearing, like give me that kind of stuff.
yeah.
But as an author, what's your stance on putting morally gray people in your books? Like, do you have that back and forth with yourself where you're like, this makes a great character, but I also don't want a younger audience reading this and then looking for that type of person?
Yeah, I never thought about it. And I think you can go like really deep down the rabbit hole. I mean, I don't
Mhm.
really write enemies to lovers. I haven't yet. Doesn't mean that I won't in the future. As we've already discussed, my dudes are mostly pretty green flag.
Pretty green
Um,
flag, yeah.
because that's what I'm attracted to in real life. My green flag is
Mhm.
sitting right there. Um, you know what? I think that if so long as authors handle it responsibly, right? There's always supposed to be a character arc for our main characters, and the idea is always
Yes.
growth. And so you can
Mhm.
start out as a jerk, and as long as there's that emotional, that character development, and that sort of reckoning with the problematic parts, I think it's fine, right? I mean, it's the same with these ideas of like when we touch on really important, maybe political things in our books, and books are inherently political, which is a whole
Mhm.
nother hot take
Hot
idea, right?
take, but I agree.
Um, so if we handle problematic subjects such as racism and there are all these things, as long as it's handled responsibly and there's growth and learning from that, and a character isn't just stuck in those beliefs, as long as it's addressed, as long as the problem is addressed by the author,
Mhm. Yeah.
I think it's fine. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Totally. And like I think that like color me incorrect if I am, but what romance doesn't start, or even any book doesn't start with some form, or it is sprinkled in some form of death. There's
Yes.
always some form of death, be it like cancer or domestic violence or, war, trials, segregation, stuff like that. There is always some sort of perishment,
Yeah.
which I don't know if that's a word.
I like it though.
But
Perishment.
perishment. Yeah, yeah,
Hot
exactly.
takes.
There's always some, yeah. There's always something that happens that pushes that FMC, MMC in that direction,
Yeah.
right? That's addressed later on in the book. So while I don't think that morally, like I would never go looking for that guy, because like you said, I have a green flag husband. I have had those relationships, not where somebody's murdered anybody, but I've been in toxic relationships. And while it sounds like fun in books, it really isn't in real life. So you're getting
Yeah.
pushed looking for those green flags.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. Like I think that it depends on the person. And
Yeah.
that's what hot takes are, right? Depends on the person.
Completely agree. Hold on. So Thanos just hold on. We may need to edit this out.
Okay. Did he leave?
No, he's still right here. What do you mean, baby?
Did he text you? And he's sitting
No,
right
he's
beside
like
you?
she's trying to communicate with me. So
Yeah,
we need to edit this
I
out.
was ordered to be
Okay.
quiet, so I'm trying to do it. So when you were discussing the enemies to lovers trope, how um JV mentioned the fact that um
Or maybe we don't cut this out.
are you setting up women for looking for people like that?
Yeah.
Does it go deeper into the fact of, I can change this person if you know what I mean? Like you always get
Yeah.
like this guy's an asshole, but if I just fix him, then he's
Yeah.
gonna be perfect. It doesn't
Yeah.
Yeah.
fit into that type of stereotype. You know what I mean? It's like I know he has his flaws, but I know if I can just get to him,
Yeah,
it's
and
gonna
Yeah.
be all
Fixer
better. You
uppers.
know?
Yeah. And no one's got time for that.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
honestly,
And
if
then that's
you
why people like to end up falling into like harsh or toxic relationships because they're like,
I can change
I
this person.
exactly. You try to fix somebody as opposed to accepting that person for who they are.
I don't
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So if we cut him out and we keep going now. So Thanos, my husband, had a good
We
point,
can
right?
keep him in. I'm okay with keeping him in if you are.
I mean, fine.
It's this is our podcast is natural. We're gonna have things happen, right? And I think that he brings a very good point because I
He
actually
does.
have a comment on it, but I think he does bring a good point that you
You
do
know
like
what?
I
You
guess
if
I'll
you
just
invite the poltergeist in, he's always gonna come in. It's like you opened the door for the vampire and said, "Yep,
yeah, we ain't got no garlic here,
see,
friend. You're
he's
welcome
gonna
anytime.
bring in his own ghost."
um but I think like so personally for me, I've had a lot of growth and development in my real life.
Yes.
And the person I am in my 30s is not the person I was in my 20s or the person I was in my teens. I wasn't a fantastic person. And I put people who I love through a lot of heartache. And so when I came across that morally gray, that fixer upper, I went, this is my redemption. This is my time to pay back and help somebody else because I've been helped through so much.
Yeah.
And that's really not a good mentality. You put yourself into really bad situations
Heck yeah.
thinking that now because now you need to get back. Now you need to repay the help that you got. And while I think that's a good mental, like it's good to mentally be there to be like, "Ooh, now's my time to help." Don't. Like it puts you in such a bad position where you feel like you have to give everything and you do give everything and then you end up back where you were because that relationship isn't going anywhere. If you
No.
have to fix and rebuild somebody from addiction or whatever, like that's you're not going to be in a good place, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and we know, I mean, it's really complex, right? I mean, then we dive into topics such as codependency in relationships and
mhm.
how you sacrifice your own well-being. And I mean, like we could talk on this subject alone probably for the next
One
several
hot take, that's all you guys
episodes.
get.
One hot take, but I mean, I mean, he's right, right? But also like you sacrifice a lot of yourself, and also you shouldn't, as I'm a little bit further in life. I mean, I'm not in my 20s anymore, sad to say, or not, because you and I, we talked about this the other day. Like, I actually
Hmm.
enjoy where I am now because I
Hmm.
have arrived at a place where I don't care. I don't feel that pressure to always have to perform. But when you are in relationships where you think you need to change someone, it makes both of you extremely unhappy. You should meet each other exactly where you are and grow
Yeah.
together.
Together.
Yeah.
And that's what a relationship is. And we're not dating advice people, and everybody
No,
should be adults and make their own decisions and stuff
don't
like
listen to me.
that. But these are just like these are hot takes. And I think that that's what's so great about books is it pulls you, it's a fictional thing, but it pulls you into real nice scenarios, right? Where
Yes.
maybe you're reading about a morally gray and you're like, am I kind of in this situation?
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't be,
This is a whole nother hot take, right? I saw somebody commenting on how reading fiction does nothing to you because it's all made up. Are you talking about what are you talking about? I mean, that is wonderful because it allows you to view something from like a completely different perspective, and it
Yeah.
allows you to step back and you still see yourself in it. You learn just as much from fiction as you do from nonfiction, sometimes even more.
Totally. And I mean, history repeats itself, right? We
Definitely.
know. We've gone through so many of the same things. And while fiction, how am I going to put this? Like real life, fiction is a reflection on real life. Anybody who's writing fiction, an author is writing from a point of view, a perspective, a thing they went through, even though it's fiction,
Yeah.
right? There's some part of that author internally in that book.
Yes.
So to say that fiction does nothing, it's not AI sitting down. It's not like a machine sitting down writing a book that has no previous experience, no past, no development, no growth. That's
Right.
all the author, right?
Yeah.
Like these characters,
Correct.
it maybe the FMC isn't a direct reflection of you, but maybe your whole cast is, right? Just little people that are just little parts of you, right?
Yeah.
In your book. So,
Yeah.
ooh, I don't like that. I don't like that hot take, but you know what? Maybe they're really just they like nonfiction, and that's okay. Give me a nonfiction book, I will fall asleep probably.
Same.
Like,
Same. No.
give me dragons, give me wizards, give me vampires. That's all I want.
Same. There was a yeah, we said we were gonna go back and forth, but I'm sorry, I'm just like veering into the next one because another hot take I saw, and I know that was a big one on Threads there a while ago, was that if all you read is romance, you can't call yourself well read. And I couldn't help but think, and
Oh.
many other readers commented that too. Romeo and Juliet is a romance story. Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights. Um, God, I don't know, so many classic like literature. And I would say if that's all anybody has read, I would consider them well read just because there might be love or sex doesn't mean there is no literary value. Are you joking?
Oh, we've hit a pressure point with
Oh my God,
JV.
I felt so strong about that. I'm
I
just
think that
like, stop, people. Romance is not worthless just because you don't enjoy reading
no.
it.
There's so many different types of romance. There's trauma romance, there's dark academia romance, there's lovey-dovey romance, there's like make you bawl your eyes out romance. Like I was in genres and then I lost it. But like there
I like
and in
bawl
every
your eyes out.
yeah, bawl your eyes out romance. There's so many different stories. There's so many different authors, right? So I think that if let's say you only read romance, but you read every subgenre of romance, you're well read because you're in a fiction world, you're in a literary world, you're in a I've lost it, but you're in you're experiencing so many different things. I mean, okay, so here's a hot take I just came up with. What isn't in romance that's in other books?
I don't know.
Like
Everything. You can find everything in romance. I mean, you can find gothic romance. You can
fantasy romance,
suspense
romantasy. There's another one.
romance. Yes, all of the things. Plus, I think they call it romance when it's written by a woman. And
There's guy romance writers.
like it's called romantasy when it's written by a woman, right? Rebecca
Yeah.
Yarros. It's called
Yeah.
fantasy when it's written by a guy. And we had this conversation with Hannah where it's like George R. Martin, right? Game of
Yeah.
Thrones, argue way more sex in his books than Rebecca Yarros
Yeah.
put in any of hers, but hers get called dragon porn,
Yeah.
and his is like literary fantasy fiction
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm like, y'all need to stop demonizing women's enjoyments.
100%. 100%. And that's like another, I don't even think that's a hot take. That's just a takeaway.
That is
Like,
just facts.
that's
Oh, and I
just
dropped my
straight
phone.
facts.
I am like,
That is just
hot.
straight facts. I am sweating. It's so hot in this room, but also like the conversation, it's so funny because we were like, we'll sit down for like 30, 40 minutes and we'll just ping pong back and forth. I don't think we're really going to dive into any of these hot takes. First one, 28 minutes. I mean, we've touched a couple of other hot takes, but like, it's so true. Like if you look at romance, and it's interesting, I know that we talked about it in the last episode, and I'm still digesting the last episode with Hannah, but like why are we segregated? Like if it's a romance, it's a romance. It's a man or it's a woman, who cares? What if you're transgender? What's it called then?
Mm.
Like, do they get their own acronym or verb or whatever the word is?
I don't know.
Like,
I think
I don't know.
it's just society's way of diminishing value of anything that is
Yeah,
enjoyed by
of
women.
course. Yeah. And I think that we could definitely dive into that, but not in today's episode.
Not
Today's episode is
today.
just supposed to be
Plus,
just for fun.
we want, quite frankly, I mean, we want our podcast to be accessible to everyone, right? I mean, this is not supposed to be
Yes.
some raging thing. It's just observations.
Hmm.
Okay, so why don't you do a hot take? Take us out of that, Tyler.
I'm gonna go less serious.
Oh,
Um,
right.
okay, less serious, and I'm gonna stand up for this because for those of you who are not on video, I am wearing a ACOTAR shirt. Have I read
What does
ACOTAR? No, I
ACOTAR
have
stand
not.
for? I have
A
not either.
Court of Thorns and Roses. I had to learn that because I've gotten stopped in public and being like, oh my god, I love your shirt, and then they'll like say something about the book, and I'm like, My hot take: you don't have to read the book to wear the merch. If you think it's cute, buy it
Right.
because you're here to make yourself happy. And like my husband bought this for me for my birthday. It says Valeris. Oh, Valeris
Starlight.
Starlight. I don't know, it's got mountains on it. It's cute. I saw it and I was like, I like it. I would like to wear it. My husband bought it for me. And a lot of people are like, have you read Avatar? I'm like, no, I haven't. And my hot take on Avatar, is too many acronyms, is that it's too freaking in my face. I don't want to read it if you're pushing it in my face. And I love the fact that Sarah J. Maas is this amazing author and has a bazillion different books. But let me tell you, there's so many other books that I could read that I'd be more interested in than A Court of Thorns and Roses because it's the only thing I see on social media.
Yeah, so
There are
you're kind
millions of other books.
so it kind of does the opposite for you, yeah? So when you see something that is really popular, it kind of turns you away
Bottom
from
of
it.
my list. Yeah,
Interesting.
bottom, maybe even never. Like
Yeah.
I got burnt because I read, I don't know where it is. Is it The Christmas Tree Farm? Oh, this stupid book. Um, I read The Christmas Tree Farm
Oh,
by
I've seen
Lori
it.
Gilmore because it was everywhere and it was Christmas season and I was like, listen, it's a cozy romance. I'm here for it. This book, there was no chemistry. I don't understand why people are like, oh my god, best series ever. And like she has like, it's a good idea because she has like this map. And for those of you who are not on video, I'm showing a map, and every store that's in the town has their own book. Okay, so it's a cute idea. It's just the author is not for me.
Yeah.
But I picked it up because I was influenced. And I say never again.
Yeah.
I will never. Especially Akatar. Anything Sarah J. Maas, I go up to the table and I have many times and I'm like, should I just pick it up and read it? But then another thing is people are like, the first book's like not very good. You got to get to the second one. I'm sorry, if I'm going to spend hours reading a book and then you're going to tell me it's not very good, I got to read the second one. Why isn't the first one good? What? Why are we here? What? Why am I spending time reading the first one? Should I read the second one first? But no, then you'll miss out everything in the first one. But if the
I
first one's not good,
I haven't read ACOTAR either. I have it, but I'm only like finding my way into romantasy. Honestly, didn't quite frankly
mm,
even know it was a genre. Man, I'm like the worst. Didn't even
no,
know it was a
why?
genre until like really 6 months ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, I'm way behind on time. Um, but I've had ACOTAR sitting on my good friend Ashley gave it to me. I've had it on my shelf, just haven't I'm also not like super into fantasy. I mean, I'll read a fantasy, but it's not like my go-to genre. Mostly
Yeah.
because of the world building and I get confused and things. And that is what I had heard about A Court of Thorns and Roses, is that the first book is very world building heavy, which
Hmm.
is why probably some individuals say they don't like it. I don't know. I haven't read it. I probably will one day read it. But I find it interesting that so influencing does the opposite for you. I
Yeah.
don't usually go with I'm not usually influenced either. I'm also such a mood reader. Um
Yeah.
that I mean, it just doesn't matter to me. But that was another hot take I saw on Threads that was similar to that. It's like just because something is popular on TikTok and Bookstagram as being pushed by influencers and stuff doesn't make it good. It just makes it
Yes.
popular. And that's the
Yeah.
thing, right? It goes back to marketing, like, and
Hmm.
being an indie author myself, like the reach, a lot of us indie authors, we just don't have the reach. We don't have the budget to market that heavily to get our books into the hands of like the big influencers. And so that is like key, right? And because there's so many indies who are absolutely mind-blowingly incredible, and they never really see the light of day because they don't have that kind of reach. And so,
Yeah.
just because it's big on the socials and everybody's pushing it doesn't make it good. Just like the reverse is true, right? Just because nobody's talking
Hmm.
about it doesn't make it bad. It just means
Yeah.
they don't get the spotlight that someone else does. And a lot of it is luck. A lot of it
Yeah.
is money. So yeah, interesting.
No, I totally, and I think that so because Akatar is everywhere. Like if there was a thing that I saw that was like, you're not really a bookstagrammer if you haven't read Akatar, if you
Oh,
haven't
that's a
touched Akatar.
terrible hot take.
That's a terrible hot take.
Awful.
But it's honestly kind of true because if it's trend, right?
Yeah.
It's trending, and if a bookstagrammer like myself wants to be on that trending train, you got to sacrifice some of your morals. And I'm not that type of person. I will read an indie before I will pick up a Court of Thorns and Roses. And people know me. I read mostly indie books. Like this month, I'm reading traditional published because I did 2 months of indie reads.
Yeah.
Like, and that was it, right? So I'm trying to find the girl, but going back to if it is popular, like the opinion, I won't read it. There are a few bookstagrammers who are like, this book is so good, you need to read that. I take that value and I go, okay, I need to read it then because I trust you as a bookstagrammer. The Happy Little Book Club is one of them. She recommends a book. She does a lot of thrillers, which I'm not in my thriller era right now, but I was. Anything she recommended, I was like, gotta read it because I trust your opinion. Suana is another one. Anything she reads, like I just picked up, I don't know if you guys can see, Legendborn and Blood Marked by Tracy Dion because she has raved about those books. And I've seen a couple other people be like, wow, this series is really good. It's a fantasy series, right?
Mhm.
So there's another girl, the girl with the red hair and the nose piercing. I can't remember what her name is. She recommends a book. Like there's a book she's recommended that I'm like, I need to get my hands on, and it's getting republished, so I have to wait because she had an arc. And she was like, I'm telling you, this is a 5 freaking star book. This book was incredible. And I'm like, I need it. Like, because her recommendations I trust.
Yeah.
because she's honest.
Yeah.
She's not just like, oh my God, ACOTAR, best book ever. Like,
Yeah.
for the views. Like, if I read ACOTAR, if, and I thought it was trash, I will tell you, listen, it's not, it depends on the person, but I didn't personally enjoy this book.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? And I feel like you can always tell authentic, right? Which is
Yeah.
how I stumbled across you and why I reached out to you. Um, versus not authentic. And so there are
Yeah.
definitely different types of influencers out there. There are some that truly are passionate about reading and they read what they enjoy. And if they enjoy
Yep.
something, they'll rave about it. And there are others who do like paid promotions and things like that. And you know for a fact they don't read those books. Um,
Yeah, and I never want to be viewed as
yeah,
somebody who just takes the money.
yeah,
Like would I love to be paid to read books? Huh, yeah, so would everybody listening to this podcast. Like, like so would you be paid to sit down and read. But I don't want to ever like if people are like if I ever had a sponsorship, which we had a bad example or a bad situation that I went through a couple of months ago with Alani, that ended up not being Alani.
oh,
But stuff like that pops up, like I will never take the first thing that comes up, especially if they're like, I will pay you $10,000 to push Akatar. I'd be like, wow, that's a lot of money. I haven't personally read it. I don't feel comfortable doing that without reading it. And what if I don't like it? And if they're like, well, you have to like it. Sorry.
yeah,
$10,000 is life changing for me, but sorry, I won't do that.
yeah. You won't
Like,
sell your
because
soul.
that's not me. Yeah.
Oh, you know
My
what?
values are more.
I've seen a lot of influencers come out like on your side as well who are like, I will not change how I post, what I say, just because you need to know, like, I came into bookstagramming not as a way to make money, but because it's a hobby, because it's something I love, because
Yes.
I'm passionate about it, right? And it's the same for me about with writing books. I mean, is it lovely to get the opportunity to be paid for your work? Yes, but I never started writing in anticipation of like even publishing, to be quite frankly. And you
Yeah.
didn't go into bookstagramming in hopes of like big collab deals or something like that. You did it
No.
because you loved it. And once you veer into or away from I love it to I have to do this as business now, like it loses its spark goal.
Totally. And I think another reason why I started my Instagram was to give myself an identity that wasn't mom,
Yeah.
because I was a new
Yeah.
mom, right? And that's what anybody ever saw me as now that I've had a kid is just mom,
Um,
So to give myself some sort of identity outside of that is also why I started my Bookstagram. But we're not here to talk about me.
well, a
Do
little
you
bit.
have, I actually haven't, well, I mean, it's my podcast. I mean, we're here to talk about me a little
Yeah, a
bit.
little bit.
Our podcast. I do have another hot take, and I think
Bring
it's
it.
going to veer us in a different direction. Um, if you're reading a cozy murder mystery or a thriller, and you figure out the end, that does not make a bad book. That makes the book exactly what it should be because you should be putting the pieces together so you know what the ending is. That's what the author wanted,
Yeah.
was for you to sleuth it out and figure it out.
I
Personally, that's my take.
I I don't usually read cozy mysteries, but I do love cleansing the romance palette with a good thriller. And usually my go-to is Frida McFadden. I just like her books a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I Tyler, I cannot honestly say that I ever figure out a thriller before the end. Never. I think I do. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh, I got here's the clues, man. You're so stupid. No,
yeah.
I'm stupid because I'm
Did you
never,
read The Boyfriend?
huh?
No spoilers, but have you read The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden?
Not yet, but I have it.
Okay.
The last one I read from her was Never Lie, and I
Yeah.
thought I had it figured out. No,
She does a good job of making you feel like
like you have it figured
the
out.
pieces are there.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
she sprinkles the red herring,
Yeah,
right? And you're like, ah, it
very
probably
well.
is. And I
Very well
haven't
done,
learned
yeah.
yet. I've read so many of her books and I haven't learned yet. So her plot twists are still like, I love that. I love that. People are
Yeah.
gonna listen to this like, oh my God, this bitch.
No, you know what? The Happy Little Book Club, that's her favorite author.
Yeah.
So like if we ever get a chance to sit down and talk with her, I think you guys are gonna have like a really fun back and forth on that because I've only read The Boyfriend. And that was one of her book club books.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been a book that I picked up normally,
Yeah.
right? And then I read it and I was like, "Oh my God, this is so good."
Never Lie is good. You'd like that. And
Okay,
that's what I
I'll put it
like.
on my list.
It's what I like about Frida McFadden. They those are quick reads for me. I get like so sucked
Hmm.
in. I read those quickly because I'm such a mood reader. It always takes me a long time to get through. Mine is, we also have time constraints, but it just takes me a
Yeah.
long time to get through books. But hers, I'm like, nobody talk to me right now. I
Yeah.
got this figured out, except I don't.
I figured it out, except I
I
haven't.
haven't.
I
Every
figured
time.
out like one or two books, and I think that like the Inheritance Games series, which is somewhere on my shelf, it's YA. So it's
Totally.
written for young adults. So I feel very accomplished when I figure out like there'd be like whatchamacalls it where you take the letters and you rearrange them to make words. And I would
A
figure
word
that out. I'm
puzzle.
like, I'm so smart. Yeah, kind of like a puzzle, but there's like a specific word for it. It's in the book, but I'll like figure it out and I'm like, look at me, I'm so smart. And the book's like ranged from like 9 to 14. I'm like, yeah.
Which
Go me.
actually brings me to another hot take. Um,
Hmm.
that YA is also for adults, right? It doesn't just mean that only teens get to read it.
I love that hot take because my favorite section of a book club, bookstore. I've had coffee and now an energy drink,
Uh-oh.
and I think that I'm seeing and smelling colors. Um,
I actually do see colors,
I
Tyler.
so my favorite section of a bookstore is teen YA, and I will always go there. One, they're cheaper. You want to give me a Akatar? I don't mean to keep picking on it, but it's just right here. It's like $35 for a book. These, the two Bloodborne, I got two for that price.
We need to say that for American listeners, Tyler is in Canada. So when she talks about
Yes.
something costing something dollars, Canada,
Yeah.
Canadian dollars,
Canadian. Yeah. So
Canadia.
let's say like Canadia. This Legend Born by Tracy Dion is a YA romance. I don't know if it's a romantasy, it's a fantasy for sure. US is $14.99, Canadian is $16.99. Akatar's like $30 Canadian, which is like $3 less in American. But like still, like I'm paying and it's like the same size. You know? I'm getting more. I'm getting two for one. Plus they're so well written. I feel like they're written for my brain.
I love YA. I love YA. Well, we already talked about it. I even enjoy writing in that like that. It's just that age group. Well, I like it like
Mhm.
the new adult, like the 17, 18, 19, 20. Like because so much happens in life.
Mhm.
So much happens like emotionally, physically, developmentally, like you're figuring it all out. That is
Yep.
why it's just such an exciting time. So I love reading that. I love writing that. Plus, YA, I mean, the whole point of YA doesn't necessarily mean the age of the people that are
Mhm.
in the book. Or no, sorry, strike that. It doesn't mean the age of the people who are meant to read the books. It is about
Yeah.
the age of the people in the books and YA, the whole genre is about essentially a group of teens, kids, young adults who cannot count on adults to make the world better. The adults are always problematic in YA. That is
Yeah.
YA. It's not YA means it's written for teenagers. No, no, no. That's not what the genre means. It means that the core group of characters in the novel are young folks and the adults, the over 25-year-olds, are problems and they don't make the world a better
Mm.
place. It's the younger
Mhm.
generation that changes the world for the better. And I love that. It gives me hope. It gives me hope that hopefully our younger
Generation.
generation is going to
Yeah.
figure it out. That's what YA
Mhm.
is.
Is Hunger Games YA?
Yes, but I
I've
devoured that series.
heard it's so political, but I think that that's like from what I've heard, and I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head, but I've heard that it's just every book is just pinpointing problems during that time, like when it was written, like political problems,
Yes.
race problems, stuff like that. And I love that about a book is when I can take and I can put myself in that situation, right? It is good to say that in this podcast because a lot of mothers who are have children who are reading right now probably think that that's what that section is for their young adults to read. So it's good to put it out there that it's about the characters in the book. The subject matter is often lighter, but not always,
Right.
right?
No, I mean, if
So,
you think about a lot of really heavy dystopian subjects are discussed in YA novels.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And like
Very political.
I don't know. I think that adult books sometimes don't give you that.
I
Like
agree.
they just give you fluff.
Because
Is that it?
adults have already figured everything out.
I guess.
Or are
Yeah, maybe
supposed
that's
to.
why I'm not. Yeah. I don't know. I think that I 100% agree that the YA is where like I do have a couple of books that are non, but my library is pretty much all young adult because it's such a big section too. Like there's so many authors, so many different like types of genres and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I find that going into an adult romance, there's a lot of smut, and that's not a bad thing. I'm just as a my preference, I guess, isn't that, right? Sometimes a book needs it. I read a book by an indie author, Unravel Me, Jen Plummer. There was a lot of spice in that
I
book,
haven't read
but
it. I
it
think I've
was
seen it.
needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it fit in that. It wasn't just put in there 4 pages to fill.
Okay.
Like it flowed perfectly in that
I
book.
need to, since we're flowing naturally. Okay, there was another hot tag on Threads that flows perfectly into this, if you don't mind. This is by Threads user Aubrey Carter 687. She said that my bookish hot take is that a large amount of the spicy romance, romantasy, and dark romance books are actually erotica that's been rebranded as romance so it sells better because romance is the best-selling genre. And so I have thoughts about that. And similar veering into your kind of point, maybe too much smut or smut, sex, blah, blah, blah. I don't actually like the word smut. I don't like it has
Me neither.
negative connotation, and sex is a natural part of life, and it's a natural
Yep.
part of a loving relationship and all of that. And then we can go into, this idea of, oh, there's clean romance, which in and of itself means that if there is open door sex in a book, that makes it somehow dirty or wrong. So I have thoughts about
Can you clarify what open door sex is? Because I'm starting to learn more about like closed door, open door, and it's a little confusing.
means like whether the sex is depicted on page in the book, like the actual act is depicted versus fade to
Mm.
black, like it's happening
Oh,
but it's not
yeah.
described, like you don't the act
Okay.
itself isn't on page. So clean
Yeah.
and clean romance doesn't necessarily mean it's any more quote unquote wholesome. Again, not to say that open door in books is not wholesome. I have strong feelings about that because, as I mentioned in my last episode, female sexuality has been so demonized. And that's why, romance books are smut and all of that. Anyways, um,
Hmm.
so what is important to know, and that is something I had to learn as an author, the difference between romance and erotica is whether when you have on page open door acts,
Hmm.
whether that is in there to drive the plot forward. It is a part of the plot, but it's still a plot heavy book, right? You could take it out
Yeah.
essentially, and still you'd have a whole plot, a whole story arc. That's romance.
Yeah.
But if the whole idea of the book is only the sex acts, that's erotica.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Totally.
if you take the sex out and you don't have a plot anymore, that's erotica. Versus if it's just a part of the story, but you could take it out, leave it in, whatever, it still drives the plot forward,
Yeah.
then you have romance. So And I don't know, I cannot say that I have read a romance book where I thought, oh no, that's erotica, because I always thought that there was a point to the, the sex acts. Um,
So if we go back to like the books our moms read, let's say, like the ones with not Fabio, but the Fabio looking guy on the front, shirtless guy, hair blowing in the wind, stuff like that. Perceived back then that was erotica. But I bet you if you picked up that book and you read it, the plot was 90% of the book.
yeah.
And then the sex that was, I think sex sells, right? So like you put that on the front of a book. I personally won't reach for a book that has a human person on it.
Whole
Like
nother hot
I'm
take.
always about the
Yeah,
yeah, I know. I personally won't reach for a shirtless guy
yeah.
on a book. Like that's not my taste. If that shirtless guy is a cartoon, sure. But there's just something I think that it's because of the cringy, I
I
guess,
think it
in a
takes
sense,
you out
books that
of you it takes you out of your head. I think that
yeah.
I want to be able to envision what the characters look like without somebody telling me what they look like. Does that make sense? Like,
And you do that really, really, really well with your covers because you do have humans on the cover. Humans is such a weird
I
word, but you
do.
do have physical people
Real
on the
people.
cover, but not their whole face, right? It's cut off, right? So I think it's like right below their nose or above their nose, so you
No,
don't see their eyes. You don't get to put a face to the character. You still get to develop that.
so
You like have a buffering,
do you
and then like the reader creates the rest of the
do
face.
you want to hear something interesting?
Sure.
So, Tiny Fractures was my very first book ever published. I self-published, but I worked with self-publishing which is like
Hmm.
a self-publishing school. Like you can take they basically teach you how to do this. And
Oh wow.
then I worked with somebody there on like cover and formatting so I could figure out how to do this. And they designed the cover for me with my input, and I was adamant about not wanting people on my cover because
Hmm.
personally, I don't like people on my cover, but they were like, you're in romance. You have to have people on your cover. That is what sells. And I was like, fine. Like, I felt almost a little bit bullied into it. And I was like, fine,
Hmm.
I will compromise with you. Half faces. And that's how that happened.
I think that is so smart though, and it hurts me
Me
that
too.
your own your own desires weren't
Not fully.
taken into account. Like learning about the traditional publishing company. If you guys haven't listened to the previous episode, we got into the traditional publishing industry, and I was shocked, awed, and dismayed, and hurt for a lot of authors out there. So like, I think that a lot of companies take advantage or they think they know it's kind of like predicting stocks. Like you're like, I know what's going to be the next big hit next year, or I know what's going to be, good for your book. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but I know what I want and what I would like put on my book. Did you write this? Did you sit down and write this? No, you didn't.
Yeah.
You have zero say
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned.
It's hard. I mean, it's a push and pull, right? Because you have your own personal thoughts and feelings about it, but especially as somebody who's new, just breaking into the industry,
Mhm.
you just don't know. And you rely on experts to tell you, like, these are the market trends. And for a long time, the market trends were having people on the cover. But as you dig in and you listen to readers, and a lot of them are like, no, I don't like people on the cover. And personally, I don't like people on the cover. And there are authors who have the people on the cover, and then they have an alternative discrete cover for their books so people can
Yes.
choose. And I actually had somebody else design a whole nother set of covers for me. And plan
Ooh.
is to re-release once I have book 3 out, to re-release all 3 of
Mhm.
them extended versions. So there'll be some additional chapters, and with the new covers.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jen did that as well. Like she did the first covers she has are like the guys with shirtless guys,
Uh-huh.
and then she redid them graphic
Uh-huh.
so that it's just like it's still the same. They're still
Yeah.
shirtless, but for some reason I don't know what it is. I think you know what for me I think it is? I think it's disrespectful to my husband to have a shirtless man on on the cover of
You're
a
so
book.
sweet.
I think that for me it's yeah, I think it's like a disrespectful thing. Like why like I don't know. I guess that's
Yeah.
me. That's my personal thing. Like I would never have a poster of a shirtless guy on my wall because I that's disrespectful to my husband to have something else I'm oogling at, you know?
Yeah, I guess I get the point, but it's a little different having a
Ooh, something we disagree on.
I
Never thought it'd happen.
I know. Well, we jive in a lot of ways. I think
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
little different. Like having a poster of a dude on your wall, like you actively have to put that up because you would find it enjoyable to look at that, right? But you don't pick the book
Yes.
up. Maybe you pick the book up because the cover intrigues you. It's always the first thing you see, right?
Yes.
But you don't buy the
Yep.
book for the cover most of the time.
No.
So I think it's a little different. I honestly first of all, I have even never considered Thanos' feelings when I buy a book or cover. I'm like, sorry, babe, we're gonna have to deal with it. I made him listen when we were driving to Vegas yesterday. I was like, you want to listen to Lights Out?
Yeah.
He's like, sure.
Oh
He is
God.
such a good sport.
That's
He's
awesome.
like, this is what you like?
And I think that yeah, and I think you're like me and you were both very concrete in our
Yeah.
relationships, right? Like we've been with our
Yes.
people, our partners, our person for a very long
Yeah.
time. So, like I don't know why I feel that way. I think I just don't want to disrespect him in any way. So, I don't
And
have
that's okay.
conversations that I shouldn't. I don't search out things that maybe I guarantee you if he was sitting here, he'd be like, "I literally don't
You'd
care
be
what's
like,
on the
what?
cover of
I've
your
never
book."
even looked at your book
Yeah.
covers.
And he's seen it, right? Because I ordered it and it showed up and he was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I'm like, "Yeah, I just really wanted to read it." And like, maybe it's a insecurity I have that I'm putting on him.
Maybe.
No, this isn't therapy. We're not going to dive into
Yeah,
that. But
that's something that you should explore, Tyler.
yeah, I should talk to my therapist about that. Um, I don't think he runs that deep. I think it's just me personally not wanting to disrespect him. We've been through a lot,
Yeah.
and whatever I can do to not,
Give him heart palpitations.
yeah, I guess, I
Poor
guess.
guy. I can't wait to
I don't
meet him.
know. Weird, weird. Yeah, weird.
All right. So let's see. Do we have I have so many more. Um,
I'm gonna actually grab one from our Instagram
okay.
because you've been actually like all of mine have just been like from my brain in the moment, but we do have some on our post on Little Prince. If you guys do not follow us, we are on socials everywhere. Little Prince Podcast on Instagram, Little Prince Podcast on YouTube, Little Prince Podcast on Spotify.
And
Um,
TikTok too.
Go ahead, check us out on TikTok too. We have a Little Prince Podcast on TikTok. Um, Give us a follow, give us a like. All of those little interactions mean so much to little podcasters like us. So that was a little impromptu self promo. Uh, okay.
What you got, Tyler?
Okay, I think this is a fun one to get into because you actually commented on this one. So this is a hot take that was put on by CM Wiley author.
Oh,
My
Carol. Hey,
personal hot
girl.
take. Hey girl! My personal hot take. As readers and lovers of stories, we are super forgiving for the sake of the story. Case in point, best example I could think of currently, we never questioned that the wolves had shorts when they were phased back into humans, even though they were clearly shredded when they weren't wearing them anymore. Phasing back into wolves. And you commented, I'd prefer no shorts when phasing back.
Of course I did.
I think that that lends to a bigger conversation because I think we are very forgiving of plot holes. And
Yeah.
like me personally, I maybe because I'm still super new to reading, I don't see them as often. I went to a book club recently where girls were like pissed off about plot holes in the book. I'm like, girl, I didn't even see that. I just enjoyed the book for what it was. And maybe I'm just comically
Yeah.
blind to that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think sometimes people think there's a plot hole when there really isn't a plot hole. Maybe there's
Mm.
a setup for a continuation of the book, and it's just something that hasn't been addressed yet. So, for example, if you're
Mm-hmm.
reading a series, that might be something to consider. And other times, you just gotta suspend belief sometimes. It's still
I
fiction.
love that.
It's still
Yeah.
fiction, even though it is like, not a fantasy, right? If it's a thriller or if it's romance or women's fiction or whatever you want to, read, you still have to suspend
Hmm.
belief. It's still fiction. It's still made up in the grand scheme of things.
I think you're right. Yeah, and I think that like that goes back to like
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo. Like when the guy would like transform from a wolf and then back, or even like the Hulk. Tell me how the Hulk's pants fit him when he is like 14 times the size. Like
True. No,
I think it's modesty just placed where you wouldn't think modesty needs to be placed.
yeah, no, I think that, yeah, I think she has a good point. We are very forgiving, and we
Yeah.
should be forgiving. Unless you want the book to be like thousands of pages and the author like
Yeah.
explains every single detail on how that possibly. Sometimes, I mean, you just got to be like, all right, and we're moving on to move the plot
Yeah.
forward, right?
And I think if a book is 1,000 pages, I'm not going to be picking up that book. I'm sorry, honey. Like that just tells me there's a lot of things I need to now
Yeah.
learn. Like, I'm going into school and I'm going to learn a lot about whatever this person is writing. Um, but I think that if you were to sit in as an author, explain every little thing, you're going to pull me out of that
Yeah.
story. Like, he has pants, he doesn't have pants. I didn't even think about it until right now, you know? He was a wolf, now he's not a wolf.
I don't
Cool.
need,
You
yeah,
know?
I don't need to hear you tie your shoes and put on your
Yeah.
jacket and your hat and your scarf and your gloves. Just get out the door and go where you gotta go.
Yeah,
Yeah, very
exactly.
forgiving.
Exactly. I think super descriptive would ruin a book.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, and then it would be unnecessarily long. Yeah.
yeah, I maybe, yeah, I could see that. I think we are forgiving readers. I think we should be to a certain extent, don't you?
I think that reading is the one place where you should be
Yeah,
forgiving. Well, not the only place, but I think it's a place where forgiving should be natural.
yeah.
You know? Like you shouldn't think if you're thinking too much about a book, you're not enjoying yourself. That or you're a very analytical reader, which I am not.
Yeah, I'm not either usually. I read to escape the world. So,
100%.
but
Same. Even though the world is depicted in whatever I'm
yeah,
reading, because realistically, anything I'm reading, there is a depiction of my real
yeah,
world, right? Because everyone who's writing is from planet Earth. It's like writing about stories.
presumably.
So
Yeah. I
presumably,
agree.
yeah,
Yeah. I I don't know, but again, it takes all kinds of kinds, right? And I guess it's okay if people want to feel upset about that. I hope it's not so upsetting to them that they don't want to give the author another chance, maybe. I don't know.
totally.
Um,
And maybe you're going in with a mindset that maybe you shouldn't be reading that book.
yeah, maybe. Okay, I have another one, fun one. You ready? Not
Okay.
so serious,
Yes.
but we make
Okay.
everything serious. All right, all right. Um,
Yes.
this one is from oh my gosh, Katie A. Perez. She's an author as well. She said, and I really liked this one. I do not care how accurate a sport is represented in a sports romance. I do not watch the sport. I do not understand the sport. Odds are I won't notice if it's incorrect. I just find athletic men attractive. And because I've seen that come up a few times where people have been upset because an author, I guess there are some basic things maybe that you could Google if you're
Hmm.
writing a sports romance, like knowing, for example, right, that football has quarters and soccer has halves and
Hmm.
hockey has periods, right? So not calling a period in hockey quarter, maybe. But some other things,
Yeah.
like if you don't get the terminology quite right, I'm sure there are some diehards who are gonna know, but then like going and ranting about it, like just move on. Like be forgiving, right? What do you think about that?
I think it goes right back into our previous hot
Yeah,
take. Over explanation. If you're digging yourself a hole as an author, if that is not something you are privy
yeah,
to or like have a vast knowledge of, and then you're doing research and then you're writing and then you're over explaining, like because I've read a couple of romance books or like sports romance where I'm like, the depiction of this sport is more than I care to know. Like I'm here for the fun romance part, and I've learned far more about hockey or baseball than I ever should
Yeah.
know because I don't watch sports, you
Yeah.
know? And it kind of pulls you out of it, I think. Same thing with our previous hot take. Over explanation. Sometimes, unless you are critical, like the person who's reading it maybe plays that sport,
Yeah.
then yeah, okay, maybe you have that prior knowledge. But I think that a lot of people who are picking up those books are just interested in the
Yeah.
story and the
Yeah.
romance and stuff like that, and not so much in the sport. But I think that you please don't hate me for saying this, authors. I think maybe you put yourself in a little bit of a box
Yeah.
when you do specifically a hockey romance or specifically a baseball romance or a F1 romance. So you gotta fill those pages with something. And that's probably depictions or explanations of the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I don't I mean, I don't really write sports romance, although it's weird because Tiny Fractures, I think, on Goodreads is like cataloged as sports romance or at least tagged as sport romance. It's not really a
It is,
sports
yeah.
romance. I mean,
He plays a
my
sport,
MCs
but
both play sports. She plays softball.
yeah,
He's on the hockey team, but it doesn't
yeah,
come up like it's not a big part of the plot. I th- I guess if you make it a big part of the plot, I think as an author, I would feel the responsibility to at least do enough research that when I mention something, like if I feel the need to go into something, I do it accurately. Um,
yeah,
but again, I think it would depend on but that should be the case with anything, right? So if I'm talking about like domestic violence, for example, and the aftermath of the trauma, I would want to know what I'm talking about
hmm,
so that I can do it sensibly and do it um, do it justice, essentially. Or if you're talking about drug abuse or things like that, right?
hmm,
Like just because you want to be respectful to the individuals who are living it. And I guess the same goes for sports because I'm sure there are some people who read sports romances and they actually play the sport or their significant other
yeah,
plays the sport or whatever. So you want to I can see how that would feel a little bit maybe disrespectful isn't the right word, but like the person didn't put enough of an effort into doing it correctly. So
yeah.
I don't really know what the advice is, but yeah.
I don't think that we're here to give
No.
advice. I think don't take anything we say as advice. There's an author, AC Hess Noir,
Oh, I
that
see.
her first, yeah, she is incredible. She's a folk horror author, and her first book I read was Dread House, and there was a lot of. Ooh, have you read it?
I'm
Have you
reading it right
finished it?
now, so don't give away any spoilers.
Okay, I'm not gonna say anything. There's something that is in this book that I reached out to her and I was like, "How did you do research on this? Like, how deep dive did you do for research in this specific area?" And she was like, "I did a lot. I wanted to represent it correctly. I wanted to represent it in a way that people would learn, and I did. I learned quite a bit about this specific thing in the book. But because you're reading it, I'm not going to get much into it. But I think there's a certain type of respect to readers to do at least a little bit of research. I don't think that if you need to fill pages with exactly how the sport's going, I don't think I need that as a reader, personally. But to each their own, right? There's somebody who might be like, I'm only reading it so that I can picture plays in my head while
Yeah,
I'm reading the
all kinds
book.
of
And I'm like,
kinds.
you
And
know,
that's okay.
exactly, all kinds of
Yep.
kinds. I think that maybe we'll do one
Okay,
more.
you want me to do one more, or do you want to? Because I have so many.
I think what we should do, maybe we'll hold on to them because I think that our viewers or listeners are going to want a second
Hopefully.
continuation. We can maybe do hot takes once a month because there's so many out there, and I think that it's a really fun conversation to
I agree.
have. But maybe we'll do one more each, and then we'll leave it to the listeners. Do you guys want to hear a second continuation of this hot takes episode?
You
Would you
want
guys
us
like
to
a hot takes
rant
episode every
about?
month? Yeah, you want to just listen to us rant because that's exactly what
All
we're
right.
doing the entire time.
You do a hot take then. Do one. Try
Uh,
to
okay.
not make it so serious.
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is my personal hot take, and I commented this on the Little Prince Instagram. and I feel so crazy saying it out loud, but I personally do not read chapter titles. And it's probably a detriment to myself because I probably wouldn't be so confused when reading the book, but there's something in my brain where I'm reading a specific font and then the next page flips over and then there's big font, but I'm going back to the previous font that I was reading. And a lot of books sometimes just do numbers, which is very helpful. Um, and sometimes there'll be things like Nightbane I just finished, and there was literally like before at all of the titles that went back in time that I just didn't realize until like the very end because I
So
don't
then
read
you were
them. And then I was
confused.
confused.
Hmm.
I was confused. I was like, how are we in the past? And it was literally
Right there.
right in front of me. I think that it's a choice. I'm like, listen, there's so many words. I don't need to read these like 3 words that are up here. It's fine.
She's giving you a map,
Um,
and you're not.
yeah,
Why did I not get to where I need to go? Because you weren't following the directions.
listen, you can talk to my husband about this. I'm not very good at directions.
I chapter titles. Good topic of conversation. I have varying thoughts on them. I think sometimes they might give away a little bit what you're reading next, and
Mhm.
then I
Yeah.
don't know, are they spoilers? I don't know. I'm trying to think of a book that had chapter titles. So, because I'm an author, I'm so sorry, Tyler. I keep going back to how I write my books. I write my books with the
Mhm.
date, um, and
Yes.
then just whose POV we are diving into. And to me, honestly, I had heard readers tell me that um, they loved it. It's almost like a thread, almost like a little bit of a detective novel, even though I don't write detective novels, but it helps them. For me,
Mhm.
honestly, I only started writing it because for me, it helps me organize my story. That's the whole reason why I have
Mhm.
dates in there for me, because it helps me organize, like visualize where I'm at, when, how much time has passed, things like that. Anyway, so
Yeah.
I like dates. Um, and I love them as chapter headings when I read my books. I am also a big fan of, again, I tend to get confused on, okay, how much time has passed, and then I feel like when a book has only numbers for chapters, then I have to
Yeah.
orient myself, like the grounding, right? So a big part of the first paragraph or so in a chapter is you need, as an author, you need to ground the reader. Where are we? When are
Mhm.
we? Who are we? Right? And that has to
Yeah.
happen quickly,
Yeah.
otherwise the reader's gonna spend too much time trying to figure it out. And that's what happens to me when I don't get a date. My brain is weird.
Mm.
But chapter titles help with the grounding, I think. The reader knows, like, okay, this is kind of what we are expecting next. And I think it's a valuable tool there, but I don't usually read them either.
There
The
you go.
long answer.
I wonder what our viewers are gonna say. They're probably gonna think we're
Oh, they already
crazy.
do.
Yeah, oh, 100%. Okay, interesting. I didn't think you were gonna be on my side on that. I thought that I was on my lonely little island by myself, just being
No,
confused.
I don't know. I've never thought about that. This is so interesting.
Oh, it kind of lends me to
Go
another
ahead.
one. I don't ever listen to the playlist while I'm reading. I find it too distracting. Like if a book has like a playlist of what you're supposed to listen to while you're going through the book, I cannot. Especially if it has lyrics. Like if you're gonna put Taylor Swift,
Antihero? Thanos was
sure,
such a hero.
yeah, anti-hero. I'm gonna be singing the song, not reading the words that are on the
But wait, are you
paper.
actually supposed to listen to it while you're reading? Like while you're reading,
Apparently,
or as
because
just sort of like a,
it
as
sets
you're
the
reading in
pace.
general, when you have a moment, you're not on the page, listen to the soundtrack because it gives you the vibes of the book? That's how I see
I
playlists.
don't know.
Because that's how I
I
create
don't
my
know.
playlist. I'm like, no, while you're reading the book, not like in the moment, but like, okay, you're currently reading Edge of Unbroken. Here's a playlist that goes well
Yeah,
with it as you're like doing your dishes or you're driving to work or something like that. To
I
keep
had no
in the
idea.
to keep yourself in that space emotionally.
I think that that's a great perspective from an
I
author
will.
because I thought it was to read while you're to listen to while you're reading, and I'm like, listen, I don't have that brain. My brain can't do
Dude, I
that.
would love to hear from other authors if that's how they perceive a playlist, because for
Yeah.
me, it's just sort of like as a placeholder in between you reading and doing other things to keep you there
So
emotionally.
interesting. Yeah, I had no idea.
I mean, that's how I don't know. I've never, again, never dug into this, but now I want to know if there's
Yeah.
any other author listening. How do you create your playlists? Are you actually expecting readers to listen to the music? But you can't. I mean, the songs are what, 3 minutes long, and it's going to take you way
Yeah.
longer, and you're not going to have a song for every single chapter, scene, whatever. So I don't know.
I've had some books that had like 3 pages of playlist.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know. I want to hear from other authors. I hope there are other authors who are
Totally.
listening to us who also create playlists and tell
Yeah.
me which resonates more with you. If it's Tyler's. It's because we were talking about Taylor Swift. Tyler's,
Yeah.
understanding perspective or mine. This is
Hmm.
interesting.
Super
Yeah.
interesting.
All right. Well, you did
That's why we do
too.
this.
Then I think we'll
Okay.
we'll wrap it up with this. What do you think?
You think we should wrap it up with just my two?
Well, do you want me to
Okay.
do one more? I can do one more. We can go forever.
I know. I gotta go buy a washing machine.
Okay.
Last time it was groceries. Now I gotta go buy my washing machine
I
stopped
have
working, so I gotta
I
go
have
get a
one
new
more,
one.
and I think this will be a pretty
Okay.
easy one, okay? This is
Okay.
someone who felt very strongly about it, apparently, because it's in all caps and each individual word is separated by the clapping emoji, like it, that,
Dang.
that, that. So very strong.
Yep.
I feel very strongly in opposition to this hot take, but so I want to
Ooh,
know how
okay.
you feel. All right. It's not a spoiler if the media, I'm going to say the book, so it's not a spoiler if the book has been out for nearly 10 years.
That's so difficult. You have generations that are starting to read, right? Like I just started reading last year, so if I go to pick up a book and there's a spoiler
It's still a
and I haven't read
spoiler.
it because I'm not an avid reader, that's not fair to
That's
me.
that's how I
But
feel.
again, as somebody who read it 10 years ago, that's their different perspective, right? They've been sitting with it for 10 years, whereas like there's so many books at the bookstore I've never read that have been out for longer than
I
10
don't want
years.
anybody to
Yeah.
spoil Hamlet for me.
I don't want to know what happens to Romeo and
No,
Juliet.
don't tell me. What do you mean they both die
Oh,
at the
okay.
end?
You know what we should do? So let's get your perspective on it because that was mine. And then I want to hear from our listeners. Comment down below. Are you pro or are you opposite of pro? Nay.
I agree with you, Tyler. It doesn't matter when something
Yeah.
was released. I don't want, well, actually, I do enjoy spoilers. But that's a topic for a whole nother day. For other people, I think it doesn't matter when something was released. It's still a spoiler. Don't spoil it for them. Just don't spoil it for them
100%.
unless they ask you to, like I will.
Well, know your audience. Like
Yeah,
if you're having a conversation with a group of people who have read the
yeah,
book,
yeah,
fine. Then you spoiler free zone because everybody has read it. But if you're going out and purposely having conversations or starting threads or whatever, spoiling books for people, like that's not fair because like I said, there's new generations. Like my son eventually will be reading the books that came out in 2025,
hopefully. Yeah,
right? That'll be 10 years from
yeah,
now. And he would have never have read it, right? So you got to keep in mind new generations. You got to keep in mind novice readers who, like myself, just start reading and end up in this world of, learning all these books that maybe have been around for forever, but you're just getting
yeah,
to it. You know, I think that it's being respectful because not everybody, like, I had to specifically put on Instagram to hide anything that was on Storm because I know I'm not going to read it until because I haven't even read Iron Flame until it's out in paperback. I'm very much a I will read it when it's on paperback person. And if that takes 3 years, that takes 3 years. I want to be comfortable in the way that I'm reading my
yeah,
book. So I had to hide it because I knew that you've got about a week grace period when everyone's reading it, and then you've got like 3, 4 weeks of everybody
yeah.
talking about it. And it's like, oh, spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. I don't want to see it.
See, I love spoilers. I get anxiety.
I hate spoilers so much that I have stopped watching trailers for anything that is a Marvel or a Star Wars, like a Marvel or Disney movie, I will go into that theater and go at things that were in the trailer because I have never seen the trailer. I was so sick and tired of being spoiled when it came to like, because I'm a sleuth, right? So like when I watch those trailers, I look for things that aren't
Yeah.
there, and that just ruins it for
Well,
me.
and they
So like
changed
when I
trailers
go into,
too. It used to be like
yeah,
15, 20 years ago. Oh, I'm dating myself. When I was like 3 years old, 20 years ago, trailers didn't give the whole story away, but then they changed, and then trailers included like the best parts of the movie. And it was like, you gave the
yeah,
whole thing away. I
yeah,
don't even
to
need to
get you
know
to go
now.
see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That's why I refuse, like, it's so funny because I've gotten looks at theaters where like something will happen. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. And they're looking at me, they're like, this girl not see the trailer? I was like, no, honey, I haven't. Because I every time it came on, I'm like,
Yep.
la 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 la, because my husband likes to watch it. So like,
But I see, I do because I actually like it's so for Onyx Storm. I'm just being honest here. I knew from reading Iron Flame that Onyx Storm was gonna be pretty tough. And I'm not gonna give anything away, but I read like chapters 1 and 2 of Onyx Storm, and I was like, okay. And then I read the last chapter of Onyx Storm.
oh my God,
I
you just skipped the whole book?
I have to because I get so like anxious that I cannot enjoy the story for the story. Um, so
Wow.
it actually like it doesn't ruin the reading experience for me. If anything, it elevates it for me because then I feel like I can actually pay attention to what's happening without like this restlessness, this buzzing of, oh my God, how is this gonna end? Oh my God, how then it's all I can think about. So I spoil it for
Mm.
myself so I can have an enjoyable reading experience, but it doesn't take away from the ending when I get there.
Wow.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but so in horror movies too, all the time, Thanos and I will be watching something. I'm like, okay, you need to pause. First of all, he has to watch it first, and then as
Yeah.
we're watching it, I'm like, okay, pause. Tell me what's gonna happen now, and then he has to tell
Yeah.
me, and then we can watch it. And then we have to pause again, and then he's like, I won't tell you. And I'm like,
Oh
you
my
have to tell me.
goodness.
I won't watch it with you.
That is such an interesting note to end on because that goes against
Everything.
everything as a
It goes
reader.
against
Yeah,
basic
it goes against
humanity.
everything. No, I think that I used to be the person who used to pick up a book and read the last page. I stopped doing that because I'm like, because I was like, if I'm interested in the last page, I'll be interested in the book. And that's not necessarily so. And plus, I was spoiling like the best parts, right? So, wow, that is super interesting to know. We're so polar opposite on that. Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
well, but I
Yeah.
won't. I still won't spoil it for you unless you ask.
No,
Yeah,
that's fair.
if people ask me,
No,
I will do it.
I don't think I will ask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that was fun. I think that we got a lot of like really interesting
Yep.
perspectives and learned a little bit about each
Yep.
other because, we never would have learned what we learned today if we didn't sit down
Very
and do
true.
this. So I think that it was a
We have
lot of
to do it
fun.
again.
And if you guys want to have a continuation
Let us
of
know.
this, part two, we'll just do like a separate series, hot takes, and you guys can
Hot
submit them and
cakes.
we can
Let's
talk
call
about
it
them.
hot cakes, hot takes. Hot takes, hot cakes.
It's because of my typos. Listen, I'm not a very good, I don't type very well. I was trying to create the banner for the thing on Instagram and I put, we need your guys' hotcakes. And I sent it to JV and she just lost
Bookish
it.
hot cakes. I think it's so cute.
Bookish hotcakes.
Hot cakes is a thing though, right? It's
I
like
think so,
pancakes?
yeah. I've never
Yeah.
had one.
I think it's just a different word for
Oh,
pancake.
yeah, from McDonald's.
I don't know.
I think they're called hotcakes at McDonald's.
I don't know. Bookish hotcakes. You're gonna go buy a washing machine, and I think Thanos and I are gonna eat some breakfast.
Nice. Enjoy your time in
We will.
Vegas. It sounds like a
We
lot of
will. Should
fun.
be fun.
Nice.
And I'm sure we'll be chatting.
I tell you, come on.
Yes, we'll probably text immediately after this because we don't stop talking to each other
Ever.
ever.
We're constantly. Oh, and you know what? We still need to. Anyways, let's get off. The window.
Okay.
You did it again. Again.
Oh my
The
gosh,
man
let's get
messaging.
off. On that note, On that note, thank you guys so much for joining us
Thank
today. I
you.
hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you in the next
We'll
one.
see you soon.